Next race we're going to discuss is the Ryanair chase, for which of course Vautour is quite a short price, 7-4 with Sky Bet. And I know that Rory and Dave are quite keen on his chances in this race. Of course, I've put him up for the Gold Cup a little bit earlier on. If he does turn up, you know, this trip does look like it will suit him, even though I do think he will get further. The second favourite is Smad Place, who remarkably has run at the last 5 Cheltenham festivals. Not quite good enough. I mean, he was narrowly touched off by a Phelan's boy in 2014 RSA.
Yeah, I mean that form that got slagged off at the time. Someone told me that's the worst RSA I've ever seen. I was like, I thought it was a cracker.
No.
I remember looking at the paddock thinking, I really like this race.
Well, he acts round Cheltenham, doesn't he? 2 mile 5 might be the
perfect
trip for him round
He was
there.
third in 2 world hurdles. He was rather unlucky in the Triumph hurdle as well. Wasn't beaten far in that as a youngster, and he's been a wonderful horse for connections. He obviously stays further. He's running in the Ryanair because he's not deemed good enough to win the Gold Cup. But there's not a huge difference. While the Ryanair always gets knocked as not being a proper Grade 1, you still have to run to a remarkably similar rating to win the Ryanair as you do to win a Gold Cup. Yep. So there's no hiding place. And Smad Place is probably better at 3 miles than he is at 2 mile 5. Although you could argue that a dead 3 miles probably suits him better. I mean, he obviously stayed it well enough in the Hennessy, but he was given the most perfect ride in the Hennessy.
It was some victory,
almost ride of the season, really, in my opinion. Where Hutch
do you think he can repeat that though? You know, you say it's ride of the season. Do you think that was maybe a fluke?
I think that's the whole point. If you think someone has given the horse the perfect ride, then you can't give full credit to the jockey and full credit to the horse at the same time. You've got to find, you know, where the gap is, and for me, Wayne Hutchinson got an extra £7 or more out of Smad Place there than a different ride would have got out of him in the day. I thought, you know, that's the way it panned out. A lot of horses struggled in the ground. A lot of them were held up to try to get home, which doesn't always work in the mud. Often, if you're held up in the mud and you're 20 lengths behind and turning for home, you just can't pick up on it. So horses who are allowed to go at the perfect pace will be seen to best effect. And I thought Wayne, the horse winged every fence, which obviously helps. If you don't make mistakes, then you're going to be able to keep your speed up that bit better. Really like the horse, but the Hennessy makes him look a slightly better horse than he is. So while I wouldn't rule him out in the Ryanair, I think he maybe should be a point or two bigger.
The strong 1-2-5 I think will suit him. I know, as you say, he stays a dead 3 mile, but I think for me
he'd like plenty of dig in the ground at that trip, I think.
So the case for Vautour, you know, it does look an obvious one.
Yeah.
You know, round track and trip.
Yeah, it's all about turning up, really, isn't it?
It's where he
I hope he does.
turns up here.
I hope he waits.
If he does.
But it's the worst. It's always been the worst Ante-Post race of the festival because the best horses always seem to have other races on their agenda that they'd rather be in, and that's the case again with Vautour, with his owner still thinking Gold Cup. But for me, he's got Ryanair written all over him, and if he rocks up, he looks an absolute stone bonking certainty.
I mean, when he was quoted, Richie, I didn't really know whether to read too much into what he was saying. You know, he said at the moment we're aiming both horses for the Gold Cup, but we might change. It was sort of like, but we might change our minds. So you couldn't really get a message from that. I mean, you've just got to wait.
The DSF does that mean that you're ruling out? No, everything's still on the table at this stage.
So. That's the thing. If you want to win the Gold Cup and you've got 2 Gold Cup candidates, you've got to aim them both at the race until one of them says, you know, I'm definitely your number one. Yeah. And then they get the go ahead late in the day. So I think
there's setbacks and everything, you know, horse might be ruled out.
Yeah, no, I think they keep him in the race right until the last minute. And you'll have declarations for the Gold Cup before they run the Ryanair. And if anything's happened to Jacadam for whatever reason, then Vautour will simply step into his place. But I suspect they will see how they get on between now and then, and whichever one of them is showing the best signs goes Gold Cup, with Jacadam winning that in the case of a tie, as it were. If they both go well into it, Jacadam's got the proven stamina, and he definitely runs in the Gold Cup. It's just a case of whether Vautour goes with him or not. And I think if Jacadam impresses as I expect him to, then Vautour will end up going Ryanair. But there's not enough in that for you to want to lump on Vautour for the other race.
No, I mean a lot of firms are going non-running in there, aren't they now? So you're not going to lose anything.
They are, but at the same time, you don't get any great value in the on or no bet market either. No. You've got to look for bookmakers making mistakes. It's outsiders that you get value on a non-run or no bet, where horses look unlikely to run in certain races, and the general market guess a price about it. I mean, my best Cheltenham Festival bet ever was a loser, so there's no great after timing here. But Asian Mays in the Champion Hurdle, I was convinced she was going to run. Everyone else was convinced she was going to run in the World Hurdle. and she was priced up as if she was running the World Hurdle. Then when the firms went non-runner, no bet, for some reason one firm kept her in at the same massive price. Whereas if she ran in the Champion Hurdle, everyone knew she was going to be about a 12 to 1 shot. They still went 66 to 1. So I had an awful lot of money on her.
Another great value loser.
Another great best value loser ever in that one. But yeah, that's where you get a good example when a bookmaker forgets to ask himself the question, what price would this be if it turned up? Whereas with the favourites, they're always in as short as they can be, because non-runner, no bet is no better for bookmakers than it is for punters, and there's no great value. Again, you're backing the horse if it runs, so you might as well wait until it rocks up and back it at a bigger price than you're getting with the concession.
I mean, mentioned Smad Place, because I looked at the race again a couple of nights ago, having sort of trying to find something among the rags that might be worth a bit of an each way, that might be each way value. And the only thing I could really find was Ante-Post, who's building up a very good Cheltenham record for himself now. He does, of course, he needs to improve again. I think he's at 151 now, I believe. Yeah. So obviously he's still short of what's required. But both his runs this season, after winning the Paddy Power and then coming out in the Caspian Caviar, a race that wasn't run to suit him. The Paddy Power was, you look at the Paddy Power again, and he's beaten 3 out. He's not really going anywhere. Then his stamina kicks in because the Fashion 2.5 suited him, and he's away up the hill. Okay, we can argue about Biowise all day long, but it doesn't alter the fact. Then you look at the Caspian Caviar, which was run completely differently. You stop the Caspian Caviar circuit out, on the 1, 2, 3 are there at the front. They've just been allowed to dominate it, and those that needed the fast pace didn't get it. And actually, Ante-Post has kept trying all the way through that last mile, and in finishing 6th, I think you can rate that form up a little bit more. So although he's got plenty to find, you can see this cutting up again. And if they decide to go this route rather than the 3 mile handicap chase route,
say for example he doesn't run, throws it wide open.
I could see exactly. I could see.
There's massive value if you take Vortor out.
I think 50 each way. If you're looking for something, at a big price each way, then
I mean, in the same bracket, I quite like Champagne West, the price-wise selection. 20 to 1 with Ladbrokes. I mean, he's due to be having his trial run at Cheltenham.
I'm going to say I've seen him.
Well,
he's going to be having one. Yeah, he was impressive behind his stablemate in the Caspian. Yeah,
and Richard Johnson, he's issued an upbeat bulletin about him, and he's aiming for the Ryanair hopefully. But of course, he does have to improve, like Ante-Post. They're just they're high enough in the handicap, but they still need to improve a good few pounds, don't they, to figure in a race like that. But,
absolutely.
Acts on most ground, and Village Vic has followed up, so the form looks pretty good. So Champion Hurdle next, guys. Forheen walkover, perhaps. I mean, it did look that way at the weekend. He, sprinted away from his rivals who were pretty decent in their own right.
A lot of people crabbing that because it was so uncompetitive, but at the same time, how can you make that competitive? With the same thing with Hurricane Fly. People crabbing his wins. It's like he's just beating the same horses over and over again. And yet he proved himself to be arguably the greatest hurdler of all time, and that's obviously a controversial view, but for a horse to keep coming back and win Grade 1 hurdles year in, year out, when everyone slagged him off every year and said he'll be gone again next year, these Monsieurs don't train on, and he kept coming back and doing it. But similarly, now you've found another star in Forheen.
He's won his last 3 by combined 30 lengths. He just walks away. Walks away from the opposition.
The only way you crab him is just say that he's Willie Mullins says the same thing. He's an odd shape for a horse. He looks like a cock.
Oh, he's rather fat on his reappearance. He
was fat on his reappearance, and he was when he won at Ascot
last year. Do you think that's why he got beat on his reappearance?
No, well, they didn't think so.
No,
but
I kind of do. But as well as tactics,
anyway, last year. He won at Ascot on his reappearance, and Dan Skelton saddled him up because Willie was elsewhere. And Dan said he was almost embarrassed to send a horse that fat out. Even though it wasn't his horse, you're saddling him up, you feel responsibility. Of course, he bolted up on that, and he's got an extraordinary engine. The thing he can be crabbed for, or he could be crabbed for, is his jumping, because he's looked very messy when he gets a hurdle wrong. And if you take a picture of him jumping the last, on most of his starts, or the second last at Champion Hurdle, he makes a dreadful shape, and he lands back feet first over the second last in the Champion Hurdle, over the last in the Christmas Hurdle last year, and over the last at Leopardstown this time. But he doesn't lose an inch of ground. It's the amazing thing. And the best example of why his jumping is an asset compared to other horses is the second last in the Irish Champion, when Nichols Canyon couldn't see a stride, and didn't touch the hurdle, as Mick Fitzgerald pointed out in ATR. He's just had to work his way wider and jump to his right a little bit to get over it cleanly. The race was over in half a second when he did that, because you cannot give a couple of lengths away by doing that to a horse like Faugheen.
Yeah.
And when Faugheen makes a mistake, he makes it in an absolutely straight line. A lot of horses, when they make mistakes, they go left, they go right, they twist in the air. He lands awkwardly behind, always absolutely dead straight. And every time he makes a mistake, he ends up making ground rather than losing it. And that's just bizarre.
He's phenomenal, isn't
Yeah.
he? I mean, how good was that 15-8, by Paddy Power after he was beaten by Nichols Canyon? And,
Yeah,
quite a few people did take that in hindsight,
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
It would have been
well,
nice, but...
Yeah, and they were scratching their heads over that, and it's possible he did hang a little bit under pressure. And the other thing about that defeat was that was the one time where Nichols Canyon was allowed to dictate the pace rather than Faugheen being allowed to do his own thing. And
which brings into question the Willie Mullins 1, 2, 3, really, doesn't it, for Champion Hurdle Day, whether he can actually do that. Because, as you say, to have one's going to compromise the chance of the other, would you say?
Well, nothing. I don't think anything compromises the if Faugheen was going to be compromised, he would have been compromised on Sunday. I know a lot of pundits have said, well, he's got an easy lead, but very quickly Nichols Canyon was on his outside bothering him, and if it was going to put him in trouble, it would have. So it's no issue for Faugheen. It is for Nichols Canyon.
It is for Nichols Canyon, and
it
that's
is for
where,
Nichols Canyon. Yes,
that's where
I could see him
if the
cracking
Mullins
and
1,
being
2,
out
3
of
is going to
frame.
fall down.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where the Mullins 1, 2, 3 will fall down. I think.
How many entries does he have in the Champion Hurdle? Willie?
42. I don't know. I think he's got. No, I think he's
He's still going
I
to
think he's got one outside of the 3. I think there's a 4th, isn't there?
In fairness, I think they probably, now that they've tried that, I think either with Nichols Canyon, they pop him in immediately behind Faugheen to do his own thing.
Just let him do his own thing.
The bottom line is, if you're betting anything in the Champion Hurdle, it's RT Fire each way at this stage.
I mean, to win the next 3 Champion Hurdles, Faugheen is only 5-1 with Paddy Power. What's your thoughts on that? Rather skinny price.
I don't like those.
I'm not keen on to win
those
the next 3. Well,
yeah.
how many 4-time Champion Hurdle winners are there in history?
Well, personally, I believe he's a new Isterbrak. I mean, maybe the 4th one might be a tricky.
Well,
because he will be 10.
Even
won't
if you
he?
might Isterbrak to win the next 3 Champion Hurdles after the first one, you'd have come unstuck.
I did think 5-1 was a little bit on the short.
You've got to look at that if you're going to do that. I mean, that's a very long-term investment.
It is.
We've had a
And
number
you've
of
got to look at your
exceptional
money
hurdlers
and-
who've won the Champion Hurdle 3 times. You just, winning it 4 times
It might
puts
be
you
tricky.
into fantasy territory. I mean, judging how a horse is going to be in 3 years' time is
I mean,
is
he's
not a
8
game to be
now,
playing.
which
Yeah.
I was looking
Yes.
at. Quite surprising.
And everyone knows
looking at
10-year-olds
face
can't
value.
win the Champion Hurdle.
That's it. Stats coming out there.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they can't.
Actually, that was the weird stat of the Champion Hurdle, is that 9-year-olds can win the Champion Hurdle, which is why Hurricane Fly couldn't win his last Champion Hurdle. But 10-year-olds
10-year-olds
can. And the last 3 10-year-olds who'd won the Champion Hurdle had all won it the following year as 11-year-olds. So it just shows you that the stats can be tremendously misleading at times.
And the new one, what do you make of his chances? I mean, he's
None.
not quite up there, but he's
listen,
terrifically consistent at his level.
I fought the corner last year, didn't I? As Rory will say, one podcast that we did last year, and all that. I was fighting his corner when others were decrying his jumping and that he couldn't have a cat and mouse chance in a Champion Hurdle, and they were proved right. And sadly, I was right. An early mistake last year didn't help his cause, obviously.
They maintain he wasn't
his
right last
form-
year.
Everyone maintains you're not right when you've had a
When
terrible
you've-
season. You ask them halfway. Nigel Twiston-Davies didn't say before the Champion Hurdle last year he's not right. And as indeed, every time you go to one of these media days and you're told that last year I remember going to ditch it and being told that Silviniaco Conti wasn't right the previous year, and I'm going, got my notes from the previous year, and he gets lots of ticks. And everyone went with it. People even went with it. Oh, he looks so much better this year than last year. It's like I've got pictures of him both years, and I've written no horse at Paul's yard looked better than Silviniaco Conti the previous year. But because that's the nature of things. If you go when you get beaten and you go back and try to do the same thing again, you need to convince yourself that something has changed. And therefore, trainers always do that. They have to do it. It's not slagging them off. If you're going to keep trying the same thing and banging your head against the brick wall, you've got to say there must be a reason for me doing it this time. No one says, "Oh, sure, what the hell? We might as well have another go."
The big surprise for me with the new one this season is why they haven't stepped him up in trip.
Well, Nigel was quick to rule out the World Hurdle.
I know he was, yeah,
early on. And
very quick.
I'm not sure about the reason for that, but it does look like he would stay further. Doesn't he? He shapes like he does.
I'll tell you what. Listen, if he's 4 lengths in front up that running, no one will be cheering louder than me. I'll tell you, I love this horse. I really do. But I just can't see where what's different this year than last
he
year,
doesn't.
and where
He doesn't have
the
the-
improvement.
he doesn't
is
have
But
the
20 to
basic
1 though,
speed.
is to run into a place, he may do.
Again, Sam's comments post race again on Saturday were quite telling. I thought, you know, and they were sort of asking him about his chances, and you know, he said, well, you know, even with Fahim there's good money to be picked up for 2, 3, 4.
The crumbs, he called it.
The crumbs,
The crumbs.
yeah, as he called it. And I thought that contrasting to last year, where they were very bullish,
They
bullish
were.
about him after the trial last year. I thought that was very much a sort of compare and contrast. It sort of told you really
Sort of backtrack,
where
wasn't
they
it?
thought, where they thought.
And Fahim
they'd be
hadn't
aiming
at
for.
that stage achieved a huge amount.
No, he hadn't,
It
no.
was more reputation at that stage.
It was because
So you can understand why people were keen to take him on. This time around, you know, you've been there, you've been hit over the head by him. You've got to decide what you do. So there's nowhere else to go with a new one. My main issue with him, or any horse in the Champion Hurdle who doesn't jump fluently, or loses ground, more importantly loses ground at his hurdles, because you can say Fahim doesn't jump fluently at times, but he gains ground in doing so. The new one, in my opinion, because of his well-known back issues, is careful of himself at his hurdles. And if you watch the last 2 Champion Hurdles, he spends time in the air and he goes out to the right a little bit.
It's
And
a trait.
if you're given a
costs him
length
ground
and a
at
half
every
away
round.
at every
It
hurdle,
costs him ground at every round.
So however game you are, and he's a game of horses I've seen, you cannot give the ground away to top class
Do you
horses.
think he might be ridden differently this year? Do you think they might try something different? What have they got to
Well,
lose
they
by?
can. Well, they
by
could try to
trying
lead.
something
But
different?
he wouldn't have the speed to get to
No,
the front, would
no.
he?
So will they try something? Will they just drop him right out this year, perhaps?
Well, again, he wouldn't.
In a fast run, you know, and let Fahim make
I mean, he
it. It's a
stays
fast
on
run
well,
race,
doesn't he? It's just
then he's got a
he
chance
makes
to
it hard
get
for
him into the
himself, really.
frame.
A little bit.
They may as well try something different because, as you say.
Well,
the
again,
sandwiches
you know,
are
if
not
they're,
weird.
if they're thinking all the best they can look for is third place, then just ride him as normal and hope he comes through for it.
What is the best of the English horses? There's a question for us. What's the best of the English horses?
Well, there aren't any.
Tricky,
There just
yeah. I
aren't
mean,
any
it
at all.
looks like it might
Hargam.
fall apart, that race.
If-
It's not
Hargam
going to be
might
a
end
big
up
field,
being
is
the best
it?
of the English.
If Hargam's the best of the English, then
Well, he
we'll
might
see.
be. He
Well,
might be.
Well, the best
on
of
the
the English at
day.
the moment is Peace and Co.
Yeah.
According to the betting, and he was very impressive in the Triumph last year. But he's got
I loved
massive.
him in the Triumph last year. I thought
He's
it was
got
terrific.
massive questions to answer for me. I mean,
He does
my
now.
problem with him last year, and the thing that everyone put up as his big positive, he was so well forward as a juvenile. He was the perfect specimen at a very early stage. The problem with being the perfect specimen at 4
Not training
is
on.
how much are you going to improve the following year.
Yeah.
You'd rather have a big scopy Triumph Hurdle horse who was maybe beaten then, who's going to improve an awful lot between there.
I agree
For
with
me,
you there,
he was
yeah.
he was
He's
almost
tall and
almost
lean,
too
isn't he?
precocious, and
The right type.
he's got a very funny pedigree, which is almost irrelevant. But his sire won the French Guineas on fast ground. He never stayed beyond a mile, and he trained off very quickly. And he's had Nicky Henderson's had 1 or 2 other by the same sire, who have not stayed a yard beyond a mile over hurdles. I saw one run at Ludlow that was a short price. They sort of tanked through the race for about 6 furlongs and then stopped. And he's not, you know, you look at that and go, Peace and Co's won the Triumph Hurdle, this could be the sire for the future. And
There's
that-
questions to
that
answer
he's
at
not.
this stage, isn't there?
Yeah, I
Until
mean,
he reappears and
Nicky,
proves it
Nicky
otherwise.
Henderson says nothing to worry about. Said you can put a line through the Cheltenham run, and there's nothing to worry about that he didn't run in his prep. A horse who ran like that on a seasonal reappearance needs a run as quickly as possible. So, whatever the reason he missed his engagement at Haydock, he's got another one at Sandown on the 6th of February, the Contenders Hurdle, which Nicky Henderson likes. I think it was invented for Nicky Henderson, wasn't it, the Contenders Hurdle? So
think
that's
it will be
what we'll see.
interesting.
If he doesn't appear in the entries for that, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah, you're running out of time.
The interesting point for me will be the condition that he turns up in next time, because regardless of what happened in the race
Yeah.
at Cheltenham, we know he was too free, etc., for
Yeah.
whatever reason. But I think you thought the same as me. There was plenty under the saddle. There was a lot to
Yeah,
work on there.
there
You know, you
was.
said it for a tall, lean sort. There was plenty under there, so it'd be interesting to see how far he's come forward
Well, that'll be
physically
yeah.
from that run.
He's a mystery, though, at the moment, isn't he,
regardless
though?
of how he's
Well,
going to
I
run
don't
his
know quite
race.
how he's
That in
going to turn
itself
out.
is interesting enough for a Champion Hurdle contender to rock up in the middle of December half fit. Is a worry in itself, especially from a yard like Nicky Henderson's. You know, it suggests that he was either very late coming back or he had some sort of problems, or it's difficult to know. And there've been 1 or 2 rumours about the well-being of the horses at 7 Barrows recently, not substantiated. It'd be interesting to see how the strike rate goes in the next few weeks, because his strike rate in the last month has been very, very good. But I wonder if there's definitely a virus due to hit some yards this spring, because we've not had the cold snap. It's very mild at the moment, and I've been feeling dreadful for 6 weeks. Apologies for the way I'm sounding at the moment. It can't just be me. It's got to hit the horses at some stage, and I wouldn't be surprised to find.
I mean, trainers, they worry about the germs, don't they? But
Yeah.
they, you know, it's justified.
Well, again, and
you
they're
don't
all
want them knocking out your best Cheltenham hope.
no, exactly. Of course, they're all stable together at Cheltenham as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw quite a few horses disappoint, and we don't know who they're going to be. Quite a few horses disappoint on the basis of them just beginning to go under with the virus. It'll be more of an issue this year than it has been for a while. It's impossible to put your finger on, but it's another element to throw in the mix.
So we were all in the Forheen camp, aren't we? Hopefully, get
Well,
some value on the day.
If I'm betting at this stage,
count his legs in the paddock.
Arctic Fire each way. I mean, he's bound. I know Willie Mullins said he'll need a bit of a break after that, but he's still aiming for the champion hurdle. He showed he was suited to the race last year. It's going to be strongly run. People will think, how are we going to get Forheen beaten? We can't just let him do his own thing. They'll have to press him. A strong run race suits Arctic Fire, and he looked a tad unlucky to some people last year, keeping on very well in the run-in. His instructions were to challenge as late as possible. Yeah. And again, if that's his instruction again, well, he'll be running past beaten horses, even if he doesn't arrive with a massive chance. So it's hard to throw him out of the frame, and he's a double-figure price, so that's much more appealing than backing Forheen at 2 to 5.
That wraps that up nicely.